Hi, this is Tucker with test taking tips number 2 for the new SAT. So we're still focused on the reading test and strategies for hopefully mastering the reading test. So on the SAT, you have to read actively, but this is definitely different than active reading in a classroom. So you want to kind of leave tracks in the snow, make small marks if you can, but you want to do it very quickly because as I said in the previous video, you only have 65 minutes to answer 52 questions. There will be a total of 5 passages that you are asked to read with approximately 10 to 11 questions per passage. There is going to be one literary passage, literary, think literature, right? A work of fiction. 2 passages that are focused on science, so 2 informational texts focused on science topics, and 2 informational texts focused on history topics. Now, you don't want to waste too much time making too many notes, but it is a good idea to underline key information or words, bracket important sections or put stars next to them. If you run into a word that is unfamiliar, if you can make a quick prediction about what you think that word means based on the context clues, and then jot down any quick notes in the margin about thoughts you have as you read. But again, you want to keep your notes quick and limited so they're not going to be the kind of active reading thorough notes you would take in an English class or you'll just run out of time. So one strategy for approaching the reading section is called POOD, Personal Order of Difficulty. So we all know we have different strengths as readers. So personally, as an English, having my English degree and teaching English, the literary text would be the easiest one for me to do. The science and history texts are going to be more challenging. So what you want to think about is which text do you think you're going to be, 1, most interested in, and 2, most successful reading and answering questions about. So if you love science, maybe you start with the texts that are focused on science topics. The key is you do not need to answer the questions on the SAT in order. You should answer them depending on which question or which passage you think you can be most successful on. So think about the type of passage. So if you like literature, start with literature. If you prefer nonfiction and enjoy science, start there. Second thing to think about is the topic of the passage. Maybe there's a topic you already know something about, or there's a topic that appeals to you. So by reading the little italicized blurb up at the top of the passage, you can not only figure out what kind of passage it is, but what is the topic of this passage, and does it appeal to you at all? The next thing to consider is the types of questions associated with a passage. So some passages have a lot of questions that give you specific line numbers, or they'll ask you questions about several different words and what you think they mean based on how they're used. Now, those 2 different types of questions you're able to answer those without necessarily reading the whole passage. So if you see a passage that's paired with a lot of questions that ask you about vocabulary or ask you about a specific set of line numbers in the text, you might want to start there because you don't necessarily have to read the entire passage to answer those questions. So think about the type of passage, the topic of the passage, and the type of questions that are attached to the passage and how long those questions might take to answer. My next tip is called 5 Above and 5 Below. And if you read almost any kind of SAT prep book, they're going to give you a strategy similar to this, which is when you are given a set of line numbers in the answer choice. So if it asks you to look at lines 11 through 13, you want to add 5 additional lines to the top of that and 5 lines below, because some of the questions will give you line references, but if you only read lines 11 through 13, you miss some really pivotal or important context. So if they say look at lines 11 through 13, what you should really look at and reread are lines 6 to 18, which would give you 5 lines above 11, and 5 lines below 13. And then you're more likely to understand what's happening in that section that they're asking you the question about. So 5 above, 5 below, always read 5 lines above the line reference they give you and 5 lines below so you don't miss any of the key context clues. Also, as you're going through the reading test, I would suggest you read the questions first. A lot of students are used to just reading the passage and answering the questions, but you want to be as strategic as possible on the SAT. So read through the questions, and as you read through the questions, look for what are called lead words or keywords. These are words that the test question includes. They might be specific names or quotes or a phrase that then you can look for as you read the passage. So if you see a specific name in a question, as you read the passage, you want to be on alert to find that name in the passage because you're probably going to be able to answer that question with the section in the passage that references that specific name. So as you read the questions, underline lead words or keywords and then look for those keywords in the text. But remember, if you are answering questions where you found a lead word in the text, it still behooves you. It's still a good idea to read 5 lines above and 5 lines below that lead word so that you really get the whole context of that section.